Now, the top story we've been tracking all week is the prospect of a 90-minute high-speed train ride between Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. If all goes to plan, it could happen as soon as 2020.
90 minutes travel time, and that should be faster even than taking a plane. This is huge, this is big, this is a real game changer.
Prime Ministers Lee Hsien Loong and Najib Razak made the announcement on Tuesday, and since then talk has been about this new train system and how it could change the way we live, we work and we play. Now, Singapore's Foreign Affairs and Law Minister K. Shanmugam is here with us in studio. Minister, thank you for joining us. Now, the announcement came as a surprise to many people. Not everyone was expecting to hear it. So how did you reach that decision?
No, we are working groups with Malaysia. This topic has been raised before. They have been studying it, and it came up more seriously during this retreat. And looking at it, in principle, conceptually, it makes sense, and therefore both prime ministers were able to reach agreement.
Singapore and Malaysia, we've had our ups and downs, and there seems to be quite a real breakthrough in terms of our ties. But is it purely economics? Is it economically motivated?
I think it's more than economics. And since 2010, when we had the breakthrough on the POA, which had been outstanding for nearly 20 years at that time, we reached an agreement in 1990, and for 20 years it was implemented. We had different viewpoints on it. 2010 there was a breakthrough, and since then, under Prime Minister Najib there and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong here, we've reached a series of new landmark agreements, arrangements, we can really say. You saw the groundbreaking for the joint projects, both in Singapore and in Iskandar, Malaysia. As a result of the agreements that were reached, you had this announcement. You have had a number of announcements.
So is this an indication that things are going to be all rosy and hunky-dory going forward?
Things are very good. The substantive relationship between Singapore and Malaysia, if you look at the trade ties and the people-to-people ties, our number one trading partner, and both ways, both benefit. And the political relationship has generally been good. In the last few years, you can say it's been on upswing. And we, of course, hope that it continues.
Yes, but would you say our bilateral relations hinge on the success of the rail link? Say it doesn't pan out as expected, how will this affect us?
I don't think our bilateral relationships can or should or will hinge on any one rail link. Really, we are the closest of neighbors. And we share a common history, people are similar, and we have to live with each other, and we have to make the relationship work. And that's the fundamental logic of relationship between Malaysia and Singapore. But if we make it work well, then you get things like the rail link.
All right, Minister, let's take a pause there, and let's go back to Tuesday when Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong and Najib Razak made mention of stability and how important it is. So let's listen to what they had to say.
Sure.
All these projects are long-term projects, and the essence of making things happen is that you need continuity and stability, which works out to, it's quite obvious what that means. And we would like continuity and stability too.
Mr. Najib's future obviously hanging in the balance right now because elections are coming up. So depending on what happens, could this possibly derail the project, do you think?
Well, I'm not quite sure I agree with the description of future hanging in the balance, but it's an internal matter for the Malaysians. My own view on the matter is that there is a logic to these projects. The Malaysian side is still studying. It's very preliminary at this stage. The studies have to be completed. Most of the physical aspects of the rail link, obviously on the Malaysian side, from KL all the way down. And we look at the studies, and if it works, we proceed. And there's no reason why it shouldn't work. I think there is a lot of logic and rationale to it.
Okay, you're saying that a lot of it's conceptual. It's still in it's still in its infancy. But do we know who's going to split the bill and how it's going to be done?
I think even that is, it's too premature to speak about or talk about at this stage. But you can see from the map, KL to Singapore, where most of the rail will be. Yeah.
Yes, most of the role would probably be on the Malaysian
Obviously,
side. So
yes.
it wouldn't be a 50-50 split?
Well, I don't want to be pushed on that, but there is a logic to how it should be split, depending on where it is.
All right. Now, this, of course, could be the start of a more integrated ASEAN. Everyone's looking forward to the rail going even further, should it actually happen. So, say I could wake up in Singapore, work in Malaysia, go back home to Thailand. Is this the future?
It can be the future. Because the ASEAN Economic Community, the vision of 2015, is one of bringing people of ASEAN together across the social, economic, and political pillars. And also ASEAN connectivity, which means road, rail, air links, sea links, all to be much better integrated. And ultimately, of course, hopefully a rail link all the way from Singapore down to southern China.
Well, connectivity, mobility, it's all good. Everyone wants it. But there are also concerns on the Singaporean end about the island being a bit too crowded. People are already quite worried about the white paper. So how is the government going to address concerns that maybe there might be a flood of people coming into the country?
Well, tourists who come in, I think that is really a question of how you calibrate it. And by and large, tourists who come in into your retail malls and so on, I think people welcome them to come and shop and go back. And likewise, lots of Singaporeans travel, and this would substantially benefit Singaporeans who want to, say, go to KL for the weekend or potentially go to KL for a day trip and come back.
But Minister, we're not just talking about tourism, we're also talking about labour shortage.
Yeah.
Singapore needs people to work here. Could Malaysia potentially be a resource for a labour shortage?
Malaysia has been a large source of in fact, the largest source of our permanent residents, our newer citizens, and also in our labour force. But the fact is, Malaysia itself is facing a labour shortage. So if you look at it today, Malaysia has had to import foreign labour into Malaysia. And we are finding it difficult to get people from Malaysia to come to Singapore. That's the reality. I think the primary factor in this is going to be that it's going to increase people-to-people connectivity, moving and traveling and working and playing in each other's territory.
Minister, we are yet to hear from one person, former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, and usually his views carry a lot of weight. Do you think he's gonna weigh on the issue anytime soon?
Well, you know that I wouldn't be able to speak for Dr. Mohamad. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the projected figure for the project. A lot of media reports from the Malaysian side are saying it's going to cost maybe 25, 30 billion ringgit. That's about 12 billion Singapore dollars. Could you give us a figure that we can work with?
I think it's too preliminary. I mean, you heard the Prime Minister say, Prime Minister Najib said that it's really not possible at this stage to put a figure, and I wouldn't rush into it.
Okay, one more quick question. We're also hearing that it might be in Tuas. Do you know exactly where the Singapore end will end up?
That's also not yet finalized. Some way away.
All right, thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
And that was Foreign Affairs and Law Minister K. Shan.